pretty clearly was not a murder. With Bourgeois, they made up a lot of stuff. Bourgeois fits in the category of someone who might be framed.
I want to mention, I think this is a miscarriage of justice. And that day in December, I mark it on my calendar because I failed.
Of the 5 executions I witnessed, Bourgeois was the only one who maintained his innocence to the very end.
It's Grandpa, how you doing?
Hello? We got about 10 seconds. If there's anything anybody wants to say before it hangs up. 5 seconds. 4. Dad?
The media made you believe that my father was a monster. But my father was not a monster. And my father would never hurt his children.
4 years ago from tomorrow, Alfred Bourgeois was executed and nobody was talking about it. It was a month later when I found out that actually he had a credible innocence claim and nobody is talking about it.
He said, hey, we have Jakarin now. I really want all the girls to see the world. I want to do a trip before you start college. Let's travel. Where do you want to go? And that's where the trip conversation came in. We were all excited, like I shared with you guys. It never happened because I had a dental appointment. And because of this, that's the reason that he took my stepmother on the truck with him, because there was no way that he'd be able to drive and watch these 3 girls at the same time.
Would you have gone with your stepmother on the trip if she was there?
That was the agreement that he and I had. When he first called and said, I want to have a family trip, I told him I'm completely okay with that. Yes, that would be wonderful. My only rule is she cannot be there. I received a call one day, I was thinking it was him, it was not, and it was my cousin. And my cousin actually told me, he said, did you see the news? And I'm like, what do you mean the news? No, I didn't see it. And they're like, your dad's arrested. He killed your sister. And I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean he killed my sister? Like, I could not believe it because I was supposed to see this man 2 weeks later. This is not my father, it just isn't. I've never believed it. So I get the call and I'm so distressed about it all, just so distraught, confused, I just did not understand. It just seemed impossible to me, like a nightmare, just something that just they had to have gone wrong. Legally, I did not receive a call from any government entity, any attorney for months, maybe 3 or 4 months later, when I was finally contacted and told that I would be subpoenaed along with several other individuals to testify on my father's behalf, which I was so excited to do because I just wanted to shout it to the world, like, you guys got it wrong. Like, there is no way possible this man could have done the things that you guys are accusing him of. And I wanted to share with them who my stepmother was. I wanted them to know the type of individual she was and all the horrible things she had done to me. I was not the only person asked to testify. My father's best friend was asked, brothers, sisters, cousins, nieces, employers, several people.
I think one of the most shocking things, I remember back in 2004, going to this trial, and of course, the lawyers that Bethany's father had at the time, Gilmore and Tinker, I remember meeting them, and they seemed like they would have had it together, right? It seemed like they would have, I'll say this. So. It seemed like they had a plan because they said they were going to use these witnesses. Let me say that. Maybe not that they had it together, but we trusted they were going to use the witnesses. Let me at least say that, right? Because we didn't know much about them. We didn't spend much time with them at all. It was just a small conversation they had with Bethany saying she would be a witness. That's all we knew. And that's it. And all these other people that they flew in and other people that drove in, we thought they were going to be used.
The sad part about this, my father really trusted those attorneys because let me tell you, and this is not boasting, like really it's no one's business, but my uncle Lloyd, he owns several businesses. He wanted to hire a lawyer when this happened for my father. My father was like, man, just don't spend your money on that. My attorneys are flying you guys in anyway. They seem like they're good. Like he didn't know. We all trusted those attorneys until we found out we weren't being used to testify. Right. And I'm sure I can imagine what he was thinking.
Yeah.
And the lawyers that my brother Alfred had in the beginning, they played defense for the prosecutors. So I would always ask Alfred attorneys, why is it that Alfred cannot have visitation rights? Why he can't write the family? Why, I said, what is going on with that? And it would always say stuff like, well, the FBI don't want him. The FBI don't. I said, well, let me ask you something. I said, I always thought that he was innocent until a person is proven guilty. I said, so, and let me tell you what else I told him. And I wanted to do this, but Alfred had so much trust in his attorney. I was going to hire Alfred attorney. And the attorney that I was going to hire was Johnny Cochran team. Okay, right there out of New Orleans. As a matter of fact, I had made an appointment to go see them. But Alfred talked me out. He was so confident with his attorneys he had. But let me tell you what I would tell Alfred. I said, Alfred, let me explain something to you. These are state attorneys. I said, they got a job to do. I said, but let me tell you something, buddy. They're not going to go out the way. I said, I can afford to get any attorney that you need. I said, but you going to pay me back. We would have that talk. He said, no, man, I don't want you to spend your money like that. So let me show you what happened. I was supposed to go up there. And they was going to offer Alfred at that time a plea bargain. Okay, so Alfred attorneys, Ricknam asked me to come. And they was going to pay for me to fly or whatever it was. And look, I was, ready to go and this and that. Then at the day before or the day of, they said, oh, well, we don't need you to come. And that's when I would tell Alfred when he would sneak phone calls in. I say, Alfred, I don't think the attorney doing the best that they can for you in your behalf. I say, it's just something fishy up there. I said, 1 minute they want me to come up there and talk a plea bargain with you. And let me tell you what I had a conversation on Alfred about. I told him when they get robbing in one room and they get you in the other room, I say, Robin is going to make up lies to do anything to save her butt. I said, now you need to watch what you're saying. I said, because you got to understand that kid is around Robin more than what she's around you. And I give him some good example of that. I said, well, when you get out your truck and you go take care of your paperwork, who's that kid with? The kid with Robin. I say, so 90% of the time when you sleeping in your sleeper, who's that kid with? And when Ricknam came down, maybe months before the trial, we had a list of people named, and I can't recall who it was that we wanted them to talk to. But let me tell you something. Anybody that was going to talk good about Alfred, they made sure that's the person they wasn't going to call. That's right. I'm telling you. So it was it's just like I said, Alfred didn't do nothing but play defense for the prosecutor. I know I'm right about this. My gut feeling tells me I'm right, because there's no way you let those people get away with everything they got away. The boy, he couldn't make phone calls, and especially with me. They definitely didn't want him talking to me, you know. And what was the reason for that? I told Rick them one day, I said, y'all not doing a good job with Alfred. I said, but Alfred don't want me to get an attorney. I said, but I got a mind to just get an attorney. But then they stopped communicating with me. When I started talking about that, they stopped. Because see, here's what they know. They knew that I can afford an attorney. They knew that. Because they told me that, oh, we check you out. We know what you make a year. We know what you can do. I say, I think that's what I need to do. I said, I think I need, it would have been a different story if I had got an attorney. It would have been a different, but Alfred had so much confidence in them. And I always was asking, well, why he can't call us? Why we can't visit? You know, I would have went up there and visited Alfred. You know, why? You know, why? What reason? Oh, well, the feds don't want it. Why? Why they don't want? So if they didn't want me, why they wouldn't let Anita? Why? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that whole thing was a disaster. And I'm pretty sure if Alfred would have allowed me to get an attorney, and I begged him, I said, Alfred, I can get you any attorney you want. I say, just, you know, I don't want you to do that, because you know, this gonna be okay. You know, my lawyer, I got good lawyers working for me, but there was not. There was not. For his trial, I was gonna rent a bus. Rick them told me, oh, that's gonna be so nice, you know, for you to do that. That's gonna show the love. And then after that, about a week before the trial, they asked me, please don't do that. Please don't do that. So it's something started happening. 1 minute you're for me doing this, the next minute you not. Okay. And look, a lot of people from our church was gonna come. It was, I don't know, maybe over 60 passengers, but I was gonna order 2 to 3 buses. They had just about everybody in our church wanted to come. They had people in the community that wanted to come. And I told them, I even told them in the church, whoever want to come, just give me your name, give me everything. I said, I'll put y'all in hotels, I'll get your bus fare, I'll feed y'all, whatever it takes. I was willing to do it. Or even if they wanted to fly, I was going to do it. Now, let me tell you what I would have did when they was going to ask me to for him to take a plea bargain. I was going to I actually was going to talk him into taking the plea bargain. I don't think they wanted him to take a plea bargain, because I don't think Patty Booten wanted to take a plea bargain, because they knew already that they was trying to go kill him. You understand what I'm saying to you? I don't tell him to take a plea bargain, because the way they rig everything up, his chances of going to court and the jury and all that false stuff, that 20 years, he'd have been out by now. Which I don't think Alfred is so stubborn. I don't think Alfred would have took it. And you know, I often tell this to people too. If I ain't did something, you ain't gonna never make me say I did it. So, you know, I was gonna ask him to do something that I probably wouldn't have did. But when I'm looking at it from the outside and seeing that everything that should be going his way, his attorney is not doing nothing for him. So my best thing was to come to him and make it and say, hey man, take this plea bargain, because you know what? They're rigging this case up on you. Take 20 years or whatever, take it. Rick and them was asking me, we really need you, because he's going to listen to you. And even though he would have probably said no, and then I started thinking about it. I said, you know, if I'd have asked Alfred to do that, and every day he sat in prison, he would have said, I listened to my brother, Lord, I shouldn't have done this, you know. So that's a lot to you know, but I think once I would explain to him, hey, Alfred, it's going to be hard to get out of this when your own team that the state is paying, they're not doing nothing for you, dude.
What my uncle was going to do was hire the law firm of Johnny Cochran. He was already in the process of doing it. They were about to draw up the paperwork, but my father's public defenders kind of discouraged it. And they were telling my dad that we're going to be bringing in all of these witnesses, these neurologists, these medical experts. We're also going to be bringing in Bethany. We're going to be bringing in you, all of these family members. You know, you're going to pay this exorbitant rate for this law firm when we're going to be doing the exact same thing that they're doing? So my uncle was still somewhat uneasy about it, but my father actually had faith in his defense team. And it's so sad because even in that situation, my father was still worrying about his family. He's the one who convinced my uncle not to spend his hard-earned money and to just let the public defenders do their job, because at the end of the day, we were going to be there to testify and the truth was going to eventually come out.
Yeah, so what actually ended up being presented at trial by your father's defense attorneys?
Not much, honestly. The defense, as I stated, was supposed to allow countless family members to come on the stand. That included family, friends, co-workers. The defense also hired several investigators. These investigators were neurologists, they were rape specialists, and they all confirmed that rape never occurred, blunt force trauma never occurred, and abuse never occurred. Now, these were expert testimonies that could have been used and that the jury could have heard to prove my father's innocence. But these individuals and these medical experts were trying to contact my father's attorneys. They were faxing them information, and those attorneys never called them back until the day of my father's trial, and that made all of these expert testimonies inadmissible in court. So they could not be used, even though they said there was no rape, even though they said there was no blunt force trauma, even though the report stated there was no abuse. It could not be said in court because these defense attorneys did not contact the witnesses back and present the information that they needed to the judge. So the jury heard nothing of innocence. We were not even allowed to view the trial, and we were only told that we were not being used minutes before the trial started.
The poor defense Alfred got from his public defenders is sadly common. Out of 3,159 exonerations tracked by the National Registry of Exonerations, 823 listed inadequate legal defense as a contributing factor in their wrongful conviction. A 2022 report by the American Bar Association found that funding for public defenders would have to increase threefold in order to meet the standard of effective counsel guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment.
That's shocking and confusing, especially when you're expecting the entire time to finally go up there and finally have a chance to defend your father. How did it feel in that moment to be told, no, you don't get to take part?
It felt just so disheartening because there was so much that I wanted to say, and I feel like I was silenced. I remember it as if it was yesterday, like these memories don't leave me. I'm tormented by them. I remember walking into the courtroom, and I remember seeing the lead prosecutor, Patricia Booth, and she stared at me from the time that I walked into the courtroom to the time that I went in the front row. And I remember shortly afterwards, my father was brought out. And it was such a bittersweet moment because this was the first time I had seen my father, and he was in chains and shackled. I remember just crying and being so emotional. And what's the most hurtful and the most disturbing for me is that even in those moments where my dad was being convicted of this horrible and atrocious crime, he still tried to comfort me. I remember him smiling at me, giving me a sign to take a deep breath. And he gave me a thumbs up as to say, you know what, it's going to be okay. You know, don't worry, it's going to be okay. Obviously, it never was okay. But in those moments, I started crying because obviously I'm emotional. I'm 19 at the time. But again, this is my father who I had not seen in years. So in the moment when I started crying, the lead prosecutor, I remember she ran to the back of the courtroom and she pointed in my direction. And then maybe 5 minutes later, my father's defense attorneys came and they said, Bethany, we're going to have to escort you out of the courtroom. So I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? They escorted me out of the courtroom and informed me in those moments, 30 minutes before the start of the trial, that I would not be used, that my uncle would not be used, that every single person who was there for my father was not going to be used. So at this point, I'm angry and I'm heated and I'm frustrated. And I tell the attorneys, you know what? I don't know what's going on here, but if you guys are not going to allow me to testify, I'm going to view this trial and I want to at least see what was going on. They told me to wait 5 minutes. These court officials came back with a document stating that I could not enter the courtroom to even see what was taking place. So my uncle, my aunt, and my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband of 17 years, they were like, something's not right with this picture. My uncle was highly upset as well because now he's not testifying, and there was a lot that he had to say. So he goes and he says, you know what, I'm going to view this goddamn trial. I'm walking in right now. They stop him. They told him to wait for 5 minutes. They get a court document telling him that he cannot enter the courtroom, not even to view the trial. The same thing happens with his wife. The exact same thing. They get her name. They say, I'm sorry, ma'am, you can't view the trial. So last in line was my husband, who again was only my boyfriend of a year. No family relation, nothing, just someone. And he says, you know what, guys, don't worry about it. I will be your eyes and I will be your ears. I'll go in the courtroom and I will inform you all what is happening to make sure that this trial is not corrupt. The same thing happens with him. They stop him from entering the courtroom. They get his full name. They go in a back room, and 5 minutes later, they come out with that same document telling someone who is a boyfriend at this time that they cannot enter the courtroom to see what is taking place during my father's trial.
Did they say why? That sounds outrageous.
They gave us no reason. Instead, they put us in a small room during the entire trial that day and left us in that room. And the next day, we weren't even allowed to go to the courtroom.
So all this takes place behind closed doors, as far as you know. There's no witnesses who are testifying to your father's defense. There aren't these experts who have examined the autopsy. It's just the prosecution's and your stepmom's word against your dad's.
Alfred was a father, brother, brother-in-law, son, friend, and Christian. I remember how I felt when I heard the news of Alfred's conviction. It was all a grave set up for him not to have had family allowed at his trial, to show the jury that he had no family support, or maybe to paint the picture that family was not involved in his life or cared about him.
His family and friends was not allowed in the courtroom for his trial. And the reason why they wouldn't let me in the courtroom, because Patty Booth must have lied on a document saying I was a witness, and I damn sure wasn't going to be a witness on her team. Okay, so you got to understand, when they do that, that will keep you from going hearing anything. So that was her plan from the start. Okay, and the next reason I think she did it, because I'm thinking some of the witnesses probably wouldn't want me in the courtroom hearing what they actually said, about Alfred. So, that's the thing that was so crazy. And Patty Booth kept coming out there, and she said, well, I might want to put you on the stand. I said, what you gonna put me on the stand for? I say, I'm not no witness. What you put me? But she was lying to me. That's what she probably had said to keep me out the courtroom.
you're sitting there reading this and you're waiting for the defense to come in and object, right? You know, we're not lawyers. You know, we're just people who can think rationally, who have a bit of a conscience. And I'll just say it, we're not idiots, okay? We're smart enough people. We can discern when people are telling a lie. Even if I'm reading through it, I can only imagine if I saw their faces and can look at the nonverbal cues.
There were so many times I was reading that transcript where I was like, you know, thinking, where's the lawyer? And then like almost
where's the lawyer?
Would pop in occasionally and object, and they're like, oh yeah, there's a defense attorney there. But
when you object, though,
it happens so infrequently.
It's frequent.
Even for Alfredecia, and I know this is terrible because she's a 6-year-old child for her testimony. They're like, well, you know, we know you're young. I'm sorry, this is a man's life. If you can put her on the stand to testify, she needs to be broken.
Hi, my name is Andrea. My brother is Alfred Bourgeois. People try to portray my brother as a monster. My brother was a loving, kind-hearted person. He would do anything for you if he could. Me and my brother used to have fun, good conversations. Even when I moved out of state, my brother would call me when he come in town. We would always, keep in contact no matter what. My brother would never hurt anyone, let alone a child. That's just not him. I hate that this went down this way. I miss my brother. My brother was always there for me. Even when I got in trouble one time, I can call him up in the middle of the night. My brother is not the person they trying to make you believe he is or was. I really miss my brother and love my brother. Always have and always will.
Hi, my name is Cheryl. I'm here to tell you about my friend Alfred. Alfred was a sweet person. I've known Alfred for over 40 years. Him and my cousin are stepbrother and sister, so I've known him and his family most of my life anyway. And they painted Alfred out to be a monster when actually Alfred's bark was worse than his bite. I've never heard Alfred say a mean word to people, and Alfred would go out his way to help you if he could. We enjoyed some good times together. Alfred used to go around the lakefront and sit there and talk for hours, and we used to just go ride and enjoy each other's company and spend time with family. And when I would see him, he always had a smile on his face. Alfred was one of the most realest, if that's a word, person that you can even ever deal with. I miss him, and I'm sorry to see that it had to go the way that it did, because he was under the impression that he would always beat this case because he knew he didn't do it. I know he didn't do it. His sisters know he didn't do it. Anybody that knew that Alfred didn't do it, because that's not the type of person that Alfred was.
Hi, my name is Terrence Dumas, and just like to share just a few words with everyone about my friendship with Alfred, my niece's father, Alfred Bourgeois. And he's very, very sadly missed. It was so hard for me to accept this, living in the Philippines and reminiscing on our friendship. Alfred was a good man, a very good man. I remember him taking me as a younger man, and we went to a football game one night, Lutcher versus St. James High, which was rivalry. And he asked my parents permission if I could stay over by him and his mom, which we lived on opposite side of the Mississippi River. I lived in St. James Parish. He lived in St. James, I think, but maybe St. John or Laplace area, if I could recall. And that was a very good experience. I will never forget that night. We went out after the game, and St. James won that game that night. We went out, and we had a great time. And I remember him making me breakfast in the morning, and we talked all night. He had a sister, very nice young lady, and we had a very nice long conversation. And it was hard to accept what happened to Alfred in regards to being executed. I'm certainly against capital punishment when it comes down to executing people, because I feel nobody have the right to take a life, and that's against the Bible itself in teaching every Bible, So, that was until now a very hard and deep pill to swallow, because Alfred was a friend of mine, and I believe that Alfred was innocent.
This is how I saw my brother-in-law. He was a soft-spoken, kind-hearted, giving person. I remember one Christmas before those 6,570 days, how he invited the family over and gave everyone beautiful Christmas gifts. He joked, clowned, and he made Christmas a day for all to remember. Not knowing this was our last Christmas with him. He stood in our wedding, best man, marched with my best friend, who was maid of honor. But the picture that they painted of him was so unjust. He loved his children, all children. They said that he was a murderer, a rapist, a monster, and everything. The prosecutors wanted the jury to believe that family had turned on him as well.
Alfred was a person who loved family and gathering. He was a truck driver that drove all over the state. He would take his kid as well as mine on vacation trip in his big truck. My brother would never hurt anyone, especially his kid.
Let me share with you my life with my father, Alfred Bourgeois, the father I knew, the father that many individuals knew. Well, when I was born, my mother and my father were not married. They were engaged to be married. And if you all have been following the Justice for Alfred Bourgeois page, you probably know by now that my father was not the most faithful individual when it came to marriages and relationships. He just wasn't. These are facts. There's nothing to hide. Because of this, he and my mother's engagement fell through and just wasn't meant to be. But during this time, my grandfather, who me and my mother lived with, did not want my father involved in my life, perhaps from ages 1 through 5. The reason being because he did not want his beloved daughter cheated on. He didn't want her getting involved in a relationship where it'd be constant infidelity. He felt angered and he felt frustrated by my father's infidelity, and he did not want him in my life aside from holidays. He was there every holiday, dance recitals, plays, any events. He was always present as best he could. This caused problems over the course of ages from birth to perhaps 5 years old, and my father couldn't handle not being in my life. He wouldn't allow it anymore. He wanted to be with his child. So let me tell you guys what the monster trucker did to have a relationship with his daughter. He went to police academy. He became a police officer, and he did it for the simple reason that he knew being a police officer would earn my grandfather's respect. And guess what? He was right. Blue lives matter. He became a police officer. He became more involved in my life. We spent more time together, and eventually, at the age of 5 years old, my mother felt comfortable, and my grandfather felt comfortable, should I say, allowing me to spend countless amounts of time with my father. I visited, I slept over maybe every other weekend, summers. I got the opportunity to interact with his side of the family more. My cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my grandmother. We got to play school and hopscotch and jump rope and all the things that kids do. It was beautiful. There were never any complications, never problems. Wonderful experience. My father was very involved. He was a very adventurous person. He loved activities, all activities. Anything that had adventure, he was there. It's just who he was. Eventually, he decided it was time to move on in life and maybe start accomplishing more goals. He got his CDL license. He became a trucker. He also purchased his first home in La Plaza, or Reserve, Louisiana, which was such an exciting time. Oh my gosh. I remember having my own room and going there to pick out furniture. I was able to pick out the bed I wanted, which at the time, I mean, I'm 36, so this was a while ago, but at a time, water beds were in. So I was just so hooked on getting a water bed, and he got it for me. He got many of things that I liked. For years, we had the most beautiful memories, movies, festivals, slumber parties, going out to eat, bowling. These are the things that you did not hear. These are the things that the jury did not hear. They didn't hear the wonderful father that he was. They didn't hear about all the wonderful things that he did. Life was good.
Nicole Marie Ferdinand. He was like a second dad to me. After my dad had got killed, he took the place of my uncle and the dad toward me. And I used to go with him on his trips, like when he was driving trucks. I have been in almost 50 states with him coming up as a child, because he used to take me and some of my other cousins too on the trip with him. Disneyland, went to some of the museums and stuff like that. I knew he didn't do that because I'm saying he was very overprotective dad, uncle, and that he was that type of person to do anything like that. But not the one that I knew, because he was just so overprotective of us and his children. So I always knew that he was innocent, ma'am.
Yes, I'm coming here today to do this short video on my brother, Alfred Bourgeois, on behalf of his daughter. She asked me to make a little video, and I'm going to make it short because there's nothing I can say on this video long term. I probably would have a video for hours. But anyway, the things that the media and whatnot had against him portrayed him as a monster. I never seen this. We've been friends since middle school, at least the age of 14, 13, and I never seen this. I mean, they portrayed him as the monster of all this different stuff, and if he was that type of guy, I never seen it. I mean, I'm 57 years old right now, and we was friends, brothers, all the way up to the time until they accused him of these things and was put away in prison until his death. I never ever seen this guy harm any of his kids at no time. At no time. Yes, a little fuss at him when he was doing something bad, just a little tap on the butt. I seen that only twice. So for them to portray him as being that bad of a guy, me, myself, I never seen it. As far as friendship, yeah, we had a close relationship. We had daughters that born a day apart. We was in the hospital at the same time. I mean, I just never seen it. I mean, I don't know what anybody else would say, but I can tell you on my behalf what I seen. And anything in our days is friendship. If it was something he had, I had. If it was something I had, he had. So just like I say, I'm just basically doing this short video because there's no way in the world I can do a long video because my phone would probably die on me. But yes, brother, that's what he was to me. Best friend, brother, I mean, just everything. For the time being, I hope this video helps a little. Just like I said, I can't sit there and explain our friendship we had. But no, I never seen the things that they call him as a monster. I never seen this. And at this point, all I can say is, if it's true on what they was trying to say about him, he was a good actor with me. And I don't think acting was no part of our friendship. We were just about in on everything. He would tell me everything. All the way up to the last day he called me before they put him to sleep. When I finally got the call after about 18 years he'd been locked up, he was still telling me about his innocence. And Alton, you know, I would never put my hand on my kids. So for this to go this far and nothing was cleared about it or stuff like that, I just don't believe it. I'm going to sign off on this one. But anything in the future I need to be asked, maybe I should be asked. Thank you.